All right. So thank you guys so much for joining me for this web conference on the community of inquiry. This is from chapter 5 from the text Thinking Collaboratively, Learning in a Community of Inquiry by Randy D. Garrison. And my name is Dawn. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over just a few items. If you could just take a moment and locate the chat box. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. That should be at the bottom of your screen, I believe. On the bottom left, I believe you're going to have your microphone icon. So if you need to talk, if you want to talk, and I will ask you to, you can just click on that to unmute yourself. If you need to either stop your video or start your video, you can click on the video camera icon there. And we're also going to be using some annotation tools. So I'll be going over those things as we go through. So I did go ahead and hit record just because we may have some folks that are going to be joining asynchronously. And so I've also created a Google Forms quiz for my asynchronous learners. So if you're watching this recording, you can just click on the link and I will let you know when we do some sort of an activity. I'll let you know which question number you can go to on that Google Forms quiz, and you'll be able to complete that. So you can just pause the video. So I just want to make sure that I'm recording this. So if you look at the top left-hand corner, you should see the record icon. It should be, I think, maybe like a red circle. And so if you can, go ahead and click on the raise hand icon. I believe it's going to be at the bottom right of your screen. If you can see quality check at the top of my screen, as well as if you can hear me adequately, go ahead and raise your hand. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. You can go ahead and lower your hand. So the learning objectives for today's web conference are, the first thing that we're going to focus on is that attendees will be able to understand that a community of inquiry is going to incorporate cognitive, social, and teaching presence to create a collaborative learning environment for a group of individuals to create deep meaning of shared learning goals. And secondly, our second learning objective is that attendees will understand that teaching presence in the community of inquiry framework, or COI, incorporates the design, the facilitation, as well as the direction of cognitive and social presences. We're going to talk about all those things as we go through. So before we even get really started, I just want to take a moment and just kind of do a quick icebreaker. And so this is a routine, one of the research-based routines from the 5 practices from NCTM. It's Notice and Wonder. So what I'd like you to do is look on my screen, take a quiet moment to look at the 2 pictures. For each picture, find one thing that you notice and one thing that you wonder. And so after a minute, I'm going to ask you to unmute and share with me one thing you notice and one thing you wonder. And so if you're an asynchronous student, so if you're watching the video or the recording, if you can respond to Google Slides questions number 1 and 2, you can pause your video and the recording and respond to those 2. So the rest of you just take a moment. And if you would be willing to unmute and let me know what is one thing you notice and one thing you wonder about either both of the pictures or one or the other. Dusty, is there anything you notice and anything you wonder?
On the picture on the left, I noticed that everyone's looking down except for one student who appears to be thinking. And so that's what I noticed, that she's the only one who's not working on whatever they're working on. And what I'm wondering is what task are they doing that she is not engaged in? Like, is it something that's boring? Is it something that's too hard? Is it, what is that? And then the other picture, something I noticed is that they're all in uniform shirts. And so I'm wondering if it's a private school or if it's just a uniform school, because I taught at a uniformed school, even though it was public.
I did as well. I taught at it was yeah, it was like, it wasn't a charter, but yeah, it was a magnet school, but it was part of the public school district. So Dave or Joe, do either of you want to share any thoughts, anything you noticed, or anything you wondered about either of the pictures or both?
I just wonder what's going on with the desks on the picture on the left. I've never seen a desk like that. And the picture on the right, they seem to be a lot more engaged and having a lot more fun.
Engage, yeah. So that's the key. That's the key there. One of the things that we're going to kind of look for. So that's awesome. And actually, Joe, is there anything you wanted to share? Anything you noticed or wondered about
Just real,
either of the pictures?
yeah, just real quick, like on the left, it looks like they're taking a test or something because the instructor's really like got his like hawk eyes on him or something like that. It looks like, and yeah, the picture on the right, they definitely look more engaged for sure.
So they're very engaged. Okay, so there's a couple different ways of teaching and ways of kind of creating a learning space for the students. So in order for a community of inquiry that we're talking about today, to create inquiry opportunities for groups of students to engage in deep meaning making, social, cognitive, and teaching presences must be adequately incorporated. So of the three presences, we have the social presence. It focuses on the purpose of the inquiry, and then also to make sure that there's opportunities for free and open communication and for the students to work effectively as a group towards a common learning goal. And then we have our teaching presence, and the teaching presence refers to the structure of the inquiry opportunity. And finally, we have the cognitive presence, and that's the core thinking and learning element. And it's made possible with the practical inquiry model, which this actual web conference is structured on. And you'll see as we go through that we've already incorporated the phase of the trigger phase. And as we continue through this web conference, we're going to incorporate the exploration phase, the integration phase, as well as the resolution phase. And the goal of that is to lead to deep meaning. Now, we're going to dive deeper into all three presences once we get to chapter 6, but today I really just want to focus just a little bit on the teaching presence. So the teaching presence incorporates the structure, the facilitation, and it directs the cognitive and social presences. The role of the teaching presence in the communities of inquiry is to first design a deep, meaningful learning experience, and then to facilitate the exploration and discussion, and finally, to directly instruct students. So this is a place where we facilitate that inquiry process and make sure the group is on track in terms of cognitive and social presence, so that it will lead to the deep meaning making. That's our goal. So I do want to clarify that it is teaching, not teacher presence, because it is not referring to the fact that the teacher is standing in front of the class, the sage on the stage, if you will. Rather, teaching presence refers or means that anyone that's a part of that community of inquiry plays an integral role, not only in constructing personal meaning, but also in contributing to the collaborative discourse in the group, which the goal of that is to lead to collaborative inquiry and meaning making. So as we continue through the exploration and integration phases of today's web conferences, you will have a chance to explore what that collaborative inquiry might look like in your classroom. So using Zoom annotation tools, I'd like you to choose a stamp to place on the image, A or B, that best reflects the teaching method and or classroom structure that you're most comfortable with. And if you're watching this recording, go ahead and pause the video and open up the Google Forms quiz and complete questions number 3 and 4. So go ahead and click on the annotation tools, click on the stamp button that you see up at the top there, choose any stamp and just put a stamp next to either A or B, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Okay, so Dave and Dusty, it looks like you're both putting the arrow toward B. So I would love to know, Dave, why did you choose B? Why did you choose it? Is that the teaching method you prefer? Or
it's definitely the teaching method, classroom structure I prefer, just because students get a lot more involved in the material and have fun with it.
Awesome, fun. That's excellent. That's great. Joe or Dusty, do you want to share any thoughts of why you chose B?
Yeah, I tend to use a flipped classroom model in my face-to-face courses. And what I've found is that if I spend the time, doing it like picture A, where I'm just lecturing, they don't necessarily get to apply it. So if I record those in advance and then they come to class and do what we see in B, where they're actually working on it, then they can use it, and then I can supervise that and provide coaching and feedback in the moment.
Nice. So you're actually facilitating kind of that inquiry process, kind of what we're talking about with those communities of inquiry. It sounds like you're actually kind of doing that. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to experience the exploration phase. So we're going to do a case study. In this case study, Nesbitt and his Nomies are in your 3rd grade math class. So some of you were thinking outside of the box a little bit, because I think most of you teach college, but let's try to think back to elementary school. They're struggling with the concept of multiplication, and their test scores are dropping. So you've always taught math using the gradual release model of instruction, where you're the sage on the stage. You directly instruct students on the standard algorithm for math multiplication by writing examples on the marker board. And then your students complete guided practice problems on paper, and then they begin their homework in the practice workbook. So you've recently heard of communities of inquiry, and you've heard that teaching presence means that you can create a learning situation that is more conducive to inquiry. Is it possible for you to create a learning environment that's more conducive to inquiry that will lead to deeper meaning making and better long-term memory retention? So I'm going to go ahead and share in the chat a Google slide. It's the second link that I just clicked on. You're going to move the gnomes, you're going to move the teacher, and then pick a student material. You get to pick a student material. And you're going to move it to whichever environment you feel is more conducive to inquiry. Okay, so you're going to have 3 minutes to do this from when I put you in your breakout rooms, if I can locate the breakout rooms. And see if I can get this to work. You know what? I think I'm going to stop sharing. I may have to stop sharing in order to do this. So if you want to go ahead and click on that link on the chat, and then I'm going to put you in your breakout rooms. When you get to your breakout rooms, then I will also share, and you'll have 3 minutes. And I tried to do it so it's a countdown of 10 seconds at the end. So hopefully that works out. All right. Are you guys able to click on that link? Were you able to see it? Okay, perfect. As soon as I move you, I'm going to also broadcast it to the rooms, and I'll see you back here in just over 3 minutes. Oh, and I'm sorry. One more thing. I almost forgot. All right, let me see. Let me share this again. So once you have had a chance to move the gnomes, move the manipulatives, whatever it is, I want you to just discuss, why are you moving them? What is the benefit? And then when you come back, be willing to be ready to share that. Okay. Okay, so I have your work shared on my screen. You guys did, I could tell you did a great job. You had some collaborative conversations there. Who would like to share why you moved the gnomes, why you chose manipulatives, why you chose to put the teacher, where you put them, and what's the benefit?
So I'll start with our materials. So we chose using math manipulatives as opposed to worksheets because we know that for students this age, they have to have a concrete understanding of mathematics before they can have an abstract, and a worksheet is an abstract understanding. And it allows them to experiment with the actual content, which in this instance could be counting, could be stacking, lots of different things, grouping, multiples, et cetera. So it allows them to experiment with that and engage in group experimentation together.
Perfect. And Joe, or I'm sorry, Dave, whoever. Dave, go ahead.
So we put the gnomes around the table so that they could see each other, so that there would be a social presence, if you will. They could interact. Joe?
Excellent.
And
Joe?
and as far as the teacher placement, we placed them more, collaborative with the students instead of up in the front on the stage. It helped the students feel more comfortable in the learning process.
Awesome. That is fantastic. I think you all you really have demonstrated a deep understanding of this concept. So by the way, any asynchronous students, if you want to go ahead and just go ahead and go into that Google Slides there. Yours is the last slide, and you can move those items however you choose, and then go to question number 5 in the Google Forms quiz. So that was the integration phase. And now for the resolution phase. So we had a chance to explore the idea of teaching presence in a classroom. You had a chance to create a classroom structure for how to best facilitate that inquiry process and for your students. And you also learned that there's not just one particular way to how to structure the communities of inquiry, but that facilitating collaboration is key, and that is what's going to lead to that deeper meaning making and meeting the shared learning goals, because that is our objective. That is what we're trying to do with these communities of inquiry. So let me see. Sorry, I skipped ahead super fast. Okay. So in conclusion, so what I'd love for you to do is just type in the chat box, either real quick, how you're currently incorporating communities of inquiry in your classroom, or if you're not, type one small change that you might make to facilitate more collaborative inquiry in your classroom. And if you are joining asynchronously, if you're watching the recording, pause the recording, pause the video, and complete Google Forms quiz question number 6. So if you want to just take a moment, type that in the chat box. So Dave says arrange tables so students can see each other. That's excellent. That's definitely going to encourage the collaboration. And Joe says small groups working on projects. Very good. That's going to involve that deep inquiry. And Dusty says going to work more towards problem solving. Excellent. All right. So thank you guys so much. I feel like you have really demonstrated a deep understanding, but certainly if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to email me any questions or if you have any issues.